Hey there, today we're going to talk about the potential outcomes of an appraisal. And we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of the buyer. So as if you're a buyer, we're working together, we've submitted an offer on a house, we've entered escrow, and now it's time for the appraisal. Here's what to expect. Option number one, the home appraises at value. And that means that, for example, you're buying the home for $700,000. The home appraises for $700,000 or more. That's a good thing. In that situation, it's really simple. We remove our appraisal contingency if we had one, and then we move on. Now, the other option is that the home appraises below value. Below value means that the appraised value came in lower than our purchase price. So using the same example, if we've agreed to purchase the home for $700,000, but let's say the home only appraises for $680,000, there's a $20,000 gap or shortage that needs to be accounted for somehow, somewhere. Now, usually in this competitive low inventory market, it's the buyer's obligation to close the gap between the lower appraised value of $680,000 and the contract price or the purchase price of $700,000. And that means you as the buyer, your cash to close, your total money due on closing day, would increase by the amount of the appraisal shortage. So your cash to close would increase by $20,000. Now that's option one. The buyer closes the gap by increasing. Option two is that the seller comes down to the appraised value. So the seller takes a $20,000 discount from $700,000 and now only sells you the home for $680,000. That's extremely rare in this market. The third option is that the buyer at $680,000 and the seller at $700,000 meet somewhere in the middle. So that means that the seller would take a discount from $700,000 to $690,000, losing $10,000 in net proceeds when they sell, and the buyer would increase their cash to close by $10,000. Again, the purchase price is now $690,000, but the appraised value is still $680,000. So they increase their cash to close by $10,000 by bumping up $10,000 and buying the home for $690,000. So they're still getting a $10,000 discount, but their cash to close, their money out of pocket, increases by $10,000. Now, the last option is the option number four, and that is also rare in this market. It's that the buyer at $680,000 and the seller at $700,000 are not willing to meet anywhere in between. The buyer won't come up, the seller won't come down. In a situation like that, then we have a canceled escrow, the escrow falls out, the seller returns the home to the market as active and sells it to somebody else. The buyer starts their search over and starts looking for another home. In that situation, you as the buyer, you would lose the cost of your home inspection, you would lose the cost of the appraisal, and depending on whether or not you had your appraisal contingency in place would dictate whether or not you receive your earnest money deposit back. If your appraisal contingency was waived, then you're going to lose your earnest money deposit. If you had your earnest money deposit protected by the appraisal contingency, then you would receive your earnest money deposit back and then start shopping with that money, and all you would lose is the home inspection money, about $500, and the appraisal money, about $700 or so. So that's what's to expect from an appraisal. As always, here to help. Call me if you have any questions.